party of poachers. They laughed at him. They told him, "You better let us go or you'll regret it." He wrote them a ticket anyway. The next day he was arrested. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. He started a hunger strike, but the media did not cover it. Only a few close friends knew that he died from starvation in prison. The poachers he caught that day were high-ranking Communist Party officials. And the story of this man, whose friends I knew, represents to me 60 million victims killed by the Soviet regime during 70 years. Unfortunately, the younger generation is not horrified by the examples of disastrous states of like Soviet Union, North Korea, or Venezuela. According to a recent poll, 45% of Americans aged 16 to 20 said they would vote for a socialist. And the historical ignorance of many is astonishing. The same poll revealed that 32% of young Americans think that more people were killed under George W. Bush than under Joseph Stalin. Despite the common belief, the Scandinavian countries are not socialist. They're solid capitalist countries with giant private corporations like Swedish IKEA or Danish Lego. Under socialism, no private enterprise or private property is allowed. Even ladies selling flowers by the road are criminals because they are engaged in private business. But if you look at horrible life of workers during the first most drastic decades of capitalism, you'll understand why the idea of grabbing property from the rich and giving it to the poor was so attractive, especially to the young idealists. Back then, even children worked 14-hour days and were maimed at the machinery, and the greedy capitalists did not care. The theory of socialism proclaims equality and the power of the people. But in reality, it is always just the power of the ruling elite. According to the Communist Manifesto published by Karl Marx in 1848, once proletariat eliminates bourgeoisie in struggle, in class war, very soon it will be able to achieve wonderful goals of socialism. So in 1917, the Bolsheviks in Russia tried to do exactly that. They overthrew the weak post-monarchy regime, they killed the Tsar, they annihilated the rich and nationalized their property. But once the killing started, there were no longer any boundary. Anybody could be killed in the name of the people, and it didn't matter whether they committed any crime or not. The communists could justify any atrocities. Even Holodomor in Ukraine in 1933, when 10 million people were starved to death deliberately. This is how Joseph Stalin stopped the Ukrainian independence movement. Soon it was clear that the Soviet economy was not efficient and it needed slave labor. So in 1937, Gulag concentration camps were organized and millions perished there. So how come this great idea ended up in such a monstrosity? Because it ignores the reality of the human nature. People are flawed and different by nature. Some are talented but lazy. Some are modest but hardworking, some are criminals, and some are mentally ill. Just give $1,000 to 10 different people and see what happens. One will put it to Roth IRA, another one will go to Vegas and gamble it all away, and the third one will just go get those cowboy boots. So now imagine all the people in a big country are paid more or less the same salary. And there's no way to get rich because of your talent, hard work, discovery, or invention. Everybody's paid the same. Okay, let's say you don't need a personal airplane, or you need just a nice house with a yard and a car for your family. Under socialism, you cannot get even that. The Government did not build nice houses with yards, and the amount of cars produced by the Soviet industry was just a fraction of what the population needed. There was one exception to this equality. The communist elite was able to freely buy beautiful clothes and cheap food in special stores. They didn't have to stay in long lines. They could go to nice, beautiful resorts and they could buy cars. But the worst hypocrisy of socialism was the fact that the Communist Party was not accountable to the people. There were no free press, no checks, no balances. Anybody could be killed, just like that poor ranger who just was trying to do his job. Can you imagine the American authorities poaching endangered species and getting away with it? Because people are not perfect. There will never be a perfect society. And capitalism has its own problems, but at least it gives you a freedom of choice, and it moves us toward a better future through technology, education, and free speech. I just wish that our younger generation could appreciate the democracy and learn the important history lesson not to succumb to the deadly lure of socialism. Thank you.